March 17th, 1964. Durango, Mexico. The air is the kind of dry that cracks your lips and tastes like dust. It's not even 10 in the morning, and the heat is already a physical weight, pressing down on the scrubland and the ramshackle set of the Sons of Katie Elder. The movie is a big one, a sprawling western meant to reassert John Wayne's box office crown, a story of brothers and vengeance. But right now, on this nondescript patch of earth, the plot doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is a man named Tommy Farrell, a man no one in the audience will ever know, tightening the cinch on a nervous rental horse. He's 33. He has a wife, Sarah, and 2 kids, Bobby, 7, and Linda, 4, in a little house in Burbank. He's been a stuntman for 12 years, which means he's a veteran, a survivor in a profession that treats human beings as consumable props. He's broken bones, lost teeth, been dragged, punched, and fallen more times than he can count. He's invisible by... His job is to make the stars look good, to take the hits so they don't have to, and to disappear afterward without a fuss. Today's stunt is simple, routine, a chase, a fall. He's done it 100 times, but something feels off. The horse is skittish, eyes rolling white. The saddle leather is worn thin, the strap frayed. He mentions it to the stunt coordinator, a man in a hurry. "We're burning daylight, Farrell." "It's fine. Mount up." Professionalism is a kind of cage. You don't argue. You don't make waves. You do the job you're paid to do. So Tommy Farrell, a man whose entire life has been about assessing risk from the back of a horse, swallows his doubt. He swings up into the saddle. It shifts under his weight. The coordinator calls action. What happens next takes less than 30 seconds. A blur of pounding hooves, a sudden sickening lurch as the frayed cinch gives way, a world tilting violently sideways. He doesn't fall cleanly. His foot snags in the for 15 feet of pure grinding terror. He is a rag doll behind a panicked animal, his body slamming against the hard-packed earth before his boot finally tears free. He hits the ground with a sound no one forgets, a wet, final crack that cuts through the director's cut, and the sudden silence of the set. He lies perfectly still. Blood trickles from his nose and ears, dark against the pale dust. From 40 yards away, John Wayne sees it all. He's been watching from his director's chair, a giant of a man at 56, already feeling the unnameable fatigue that will soon be diagnosed as the lung cancer that will eventually kill him. He sees the fall, sees the awful stillness. And before anyone else moves, before the medics or the assistants, Wayne is running, his big body covering the distance with a speed that belies his years. He drops to his knees in the dirt beside Tommy, his face, so often a mask of stoic certainty, etched with raw fear. "Tommy, Tommy, can you hear me?" Tommy's eyes flutter, trying to find focus. But no sound comes. A whisper of air. Wayne's head whips up, his voice a roar that echoes off the distant mountains. "Get a doctor, get an ambulance, now." But this is Durango, 1964, remote, isolated. The ambulance is a station wagon. The nearest hospital is 2 hours away on rutted dirt roads. The set medic, a local with a first aid kit, kneels, checks Tommy's pulse, his pupils, the unnatural angle of his spine. He looks up at Wayne, and the shake of his head is a death sentence. His back is broken, maybe his neck. He needs a hospital. Now, there is a moment of surreal bureaucratic hesitation. The assistant director, a man whose job is to keep the schedule, mumbles about the shot, about the light, about the cost of shutting down. Wayne turns on him. The rage in his eyes is cold, terrifying. "I don't care about the goddamn light. Get the cars." Clear a path. The tone admits no argument. It is the voice of a man who has commanded scenes and armies, and it brooks no dissent. They lift Tommy as gently as they can onto a makeshift stretcher, a door ripped from a nearby shed, and slide him into the back of the station wagon. Wayne climbs in after him, cradling Tommy's head in his lap to stabilize it, his large hands surprisingly gentle. The driver guns the engine, and they lurch onto the road, a cloud of dust marking their desperate exodus. Every pothole, every rock sends a jolt through Tommy's broken body. Wayne flinches with each one, as if sharing the pain. Somewhere on that nightmarish journey, Tommy swims back to consciousness. The world is a blur of pain and the roof of a car. He sees Wayne's face above him, grim, streaked with dust and sweat. He tries to speak, to form the only thought that matters. It comes out as a gurgle, then a rasp. "My kids." Wayne's face, that iconic monument of American toughness, crumples, just for a second. Then it hardens into something even more determined. He leans close, his voice low, fierce, a vow made in the shaking belly of a car barreling through the Mexican desert. "Your kids are going to be fine. You're going to be fine. I promise you." Tears, not from the physical agony, but from the sheer, overwhelming terror of it all, well in Tommy's eyes. The fear of never seeing Bobby's smile again, of never hearing Linda's laugh, of leaving Sarah alone. Wayne sees it. He grips Tommy's hand, the grip of a man who built a legend on physical strength. "Listen to me. You are going to survive this, and I am going to make sure your family is taken care of. No matter what happens, they will be okay. Do you understand me?" Tommy manages a weak, almost imperceptible nod. Then the pain drags him under again. 2 hours and 17 minutes after the fall, they skid to a halt outside Durango Regional Hospital, a modest, whitewashed building. Tommy is rushed into... Wayne is left in the hallway, a colossus in a cowboy costume, now stained with dirt and blood, surrounded by the frantic, incomprehensible sounds of Spanish. He stands like a statue, refusing to move, to sit, to wash his hands. The studio executive, Martin Rosenberg, arrives 30 minutes later, his face pinched with irritation, not concern. "Duke, what the hell happened? We've lost half a day's shooting." Wayne turns slowly. The movement is deliberate, dangerous. A man's spine is broken. That's what happened. Rosenberg waves a dismissive hand. "Stuntmen get hurt. It's the job. We have insurance procedures. Let's get back to work. We can sort the paperwork later." The distance between the two men is only a few feet, but it might as well be a canyon. Wayne takes one step forward. At 6'4", he towers, his presence suddenly filling the cramped hallway. "We're not filming anything until I know Tommy's going to live." Rosenberg's face flushes. "Duke, we have a schedule, we have a budget. You have a contract. I don't care about the contract." The silence is absolute. Nurses pause, orderlies step. Rosenberg's voice drops to a venomous hiss, meant only for Wayne. "You don't care. If we shut down, the studio loses $50,000 a day. They'll sue you for every cent you have. They'll destroy your career." Wayne doesn't blink. Let them try. The surgery lasts 7 hours. Wayne waits on a hard metal chair outside the operating room doors. He doesn't eat. He doesn't leave to change. Dean Martin, his co-star and friend, arrives, sits beside him, and wordlessly offers a cigarette. They sit in silence, the smoke of blue haze in the sterile air. That's the kind of friendship that needs no words. Finally, the surgeon emerges. He looks exhausted, defeated. His English is halting. We stabilize him. But his spine, very damaged. He will live, but he will not walk. Wayne's jaw works. Ever. A sad shake of the head. paralyzed, from the chest down. I am sorry. Wayne walks outside into the cool Mexican night. Dean follows. They stand under a blanket of stars, the lights of the hospital casting long shadows. Wayne's hands, usually so steady, are trembling. He's 33 years old, Dino. 2 kids, a wife, his whole life ahead of him. And now, his voice, that famous gravelly baritone, breaks. Now he's in a wheelchair because a goddamn $2 saddle strap broke. Dean Martin, the king of cool, takes a long drag. It's not your fault, Duke, isn't it? Wayne's question is a challenge to the universe. I'm the star. My name is above the title. They listened to me. I could have stopped it. I could have looked at those nervous horses and that shoddy equipment and said, no. But I didn't. Because that's not how it's done. We keep moving. We make the picture. So, Dean says, exhaling, what are you going to do? Wayne looks up at the stars, then back at the hospital. I'm going to keep my promise. The next morning, in a room that smells of antiseptic and despair, Tommy Farrell wakes to a new reality. He can't feel his legs. He can't move anything below his... The weight of it is worse than any physical pain. John Wayne is there, still in the same clothes, looking older than Tommy has ever seen him. How bad? Tommy's voice is sandpaper. You're paralyzed, from the chest down. Tommy closes his eyes. The tears come then, silent and hopeless. My kids. Wayne leans forward, filling Tommy's limited field of vision. I made you a promise yesterday, in the car. Do you remember? A faint nod. I promised your family would be taken care of. I'm keeping that promise. Tommy's eyes open, red-rimmed and desperate. Duke, you don't have to... Yes, I do. The words are flat, final. Every medical bill, every rehab session, a house you can live in. Everything. For as long as it takes. That could be a fortune. I don't care what it costs. Wayne's gaze is unwavering. And there's more. I'm going to make sure this never happens to another stuntman. Not on my set. Not on any set. I'm going to change how this whole goddamn town... Tommy stares, unable to process the magnitude of what he's hearing. Why? I'm nobody. I'm just a stuntman. For the first time, Wayne's own eyes glisten. No, you're a husband, a father, a man who trusted us to keep you safe. And we failed you. I failed you. He reaches out, grips Tommy's hand, the only part of him that can still feel. But I won't fail you again. What follows is not a heroic montage, but a grueling, expensive war. Back in Los Angeles, Wayne calls a meeting with the Paramount brass. He lays out his demands: new safety protocols, mandatory equipment checks, independent safety supervisors, real insurance for every stunt performer. The executives don't take him seriously. They chuckle, they cite cost, tradition, the impossible inertia of the studio system. Duke, be reasonable. This will add $100,000 to every picture. The whole industry will balk. Wayne stands, his presence filling the boardroom. Then the industry will have to change. Because I am not making another film until it... They think it's a bluff. It is not. He walks out and calls his lawyer. The new contract clause is born. No John Wayne picture will proceed without the highest safety standards in Hollywood history. His agent calls, panicked. You'll be blacklisted. You'll go bankrupt. Wayne's reply is simple. Then I'll go bankrupt keeping men alive. The studio strikes back with a $3 million lawsuit for breach of contract. Other studios cancel his upcoming projects. The trades paint him as a difficult, aging star jeopardizing the industry. Meanwhile, the bills start arriving. Tommy's initial surgeries and hospitalization, $47,000. finding and modifying a wheelchair-accessible home near a proper rehabilitation center, a small fortune. Ongoing physical therapy, living expenses for Sarah and the children. Wayne's accountant delivers the grim math. He is spending $8,000 a month, an astronomical sum in 1964. At this rate, his considerable savings will be gone in 2 years. But a strange thing happened. The Stuntman, a silent brotherhood accustomed to fear and neglect, begin to whisper. Then they begin to speak. Stories pour out of covered-up deaths, of ignored injuries, of a system that valued a shot over a human life. The public, oblivious to the brutal mechanics behind their entertainment, is horrified. Letters flood studio mailrooms. The narrative shifts from Wayne's tantrum to Wayne's crusade. While Wayne fights his war in boardrooms, Tommy fights his in a rehabilitation clinic. Learning to live in a broken body is a daily crucifixion. The depression is a black pit. On one of Wayne's visits, Tommy confesses, "I'm not a man anymore, Duke. I'm a burden." Wayne's response is not gentle. "You think your kids care if you can walk. They care if you're here. They care if you love them. That's what makes you a man. Not your legs. Easy for you to say," Tommy fires back. Bitter. "You can still do anything." "Can I?" Wayne's voice drops. He looks around the room, then back at the doctors found a tumor in my lung. They're taking the whole thing out next month. After that, I'll never breathe the same. Never be as strong. So no, Tommy. I can't do everything. None of us can. We just do what we can with what we have. It is a staggering confession. He has told no one else. Not the press, not his family. He has told the paralyzed stuntman first. In that moment, they are no longer star and stuntman. They are just two broken men trying to figure out how to keep living. Wayne's lung cancer surgery in September 1964 forces a pause, a brutal convalescence that sidelines the icon. But from his sickbed, the momentum he started grows without him. The Directors Guild, spurred into action, publishes a damning report. Current stunt practices constitute criminal negligence. Facing public relations catastrophe and potential government regulation, the major studios finally capitulate. In January 1965, the Hollywood Safety Council is formed. John Wayne, weakened but unbowed, is offered a seat at the table. For the next 18 months, he helps draft the regulations that become the industry Bible, mandatory documented equipment inspections before every stunt, certified independent safety coordinators with the power to halt production, comprehensive health and life insurance for all stunt performers, standardized emergency medical response plans. They add cost, yes, about $75,000 per major film, but they change the calculus from profit to people. The numbers tell the story. In the 3 years before 1965, 11 stunt performers died on set. In the 3 years after, the number was 0. Tommy Farrell never walks again. But with Wayne's unwavering support, financial, emotional, steadfast, he builds a new life. He goes to school, becomes an accountant, finds purpose in a desk job where his unique understanding of risk becomes an asset. He raises his children. He sees Bobby become a teacher, Linda a nurse. He grows old with Sarah. By 1970, he is self-sufficient. He tries to release Wayne from the promise. "Duke, you've done enough. More than enough. I can stand on my own now." Wayne just smiles. "I'm not doing it because you need it, Tommy. I'm doing it because I need to. You let me keep my promise. That's worth more than any money." Their relationship deepens into a genuine private friendship. Wayne visits not out of obligation, but for companionship. He plays with Tommy's grandchildren. They talk, not about movies, but about life, survival, and the quiet struggles no fan magazine would ever understand. Tommy becomes one of the few people who sees the true cost of Wayne's own battles, the constant pain, the fear of recurrence, the grim knowledge ticking behind his eyes. In 1976, Tommy attends the premiere of The Shootist, Wayne's final film, a poignant meditation on a dying gunfighter. He rolls his wheelchair up to the legend in the lobby. They shake hands. "You made a good one, Duke." Wayne smiles, the weariness evident, but "We both did, Tommy. We both survived." On June 11, 1979, John Wayne dies at UCLA Medical Center. The family is there, and in the corner of the room, in his wheelchair, is Tommy Farrell. When the others have said their goodbyes, Tommy wheels closer. He takes Wayne's hand, the grip now frighteningly weak. "You saved my life, Duke, not just on March 17th, every day after. You saved hundreds of lives. Every stuntman who goes home safe now does it because of you. You kept your promise." Wayne's clouded eyes find his. His voice is the faintest rasp. "We kept it together." Tommy nods, tears streaming freely. "Together." 20 minutes later, the Duke is gone. At the funeral, amidst the pomp and the speeches about an American icon, Tommy sits quietly in the back. He knows a different truth. The greatest role John Wayne ever played wasn't on a soundstage. It was in a dusty Mexican hospital making a vow. It was in spending 15 years and over $2 million of his own money to honor. It was in showing up, month after month, year after year, for a man the world had forgotten. After Tommy's own death in 2003, his son Bobby found a letter in his father's desk. It was from Wayne, dated March 18, 1964, the day after the accident. The handwriting was bold, unwavering, Tommy. "I promise your family will be taken care of. I promise we'll make Hollywood safer. I promise you won't be forgotten. I keep my promises." Duke Tommy had carried it for 39 years. Beside it was another letter, in Tommy's own hand, dated June 12, 1979, the day after Wayne died. It was never sent. "Duke, you died yesterday. I didn't get to say everything. You saved my life by making me matter. Before, I was invisible, disposable. You made them see we're human beings. Millions will remember you as the Duke, the cowboy, the icon. I remember you as the man who sat in a Mexican hospital for 7 hours, waiting to see if I'd live. Thank you for being human. Your friend forever, Tommy." Two sides of the same promise. The full story of heroism isn't found in the dramatic fall or the furious fight. It's in the quiet, determined aftermath. It's in the choice to see the invisible man, to shoulder his burden, and to change the world so others wouldn't have to bear it again. On a hot, dusty day in Durango, a saddle strap broke, and a movie star stopped being just a legend and became simply a man who kept his word. And in doing so, he ensured that countless other men, whose names we will never know, got to go home. The legacy of that promise did not end in a hospital room or in a museum display case. It became a living, breathing thing, woven into the very fabric of a reckless industry. In the years following Wayne's death, Tommy Farrell would sometimes, on quiet afternoons, watch old westerns on television. He'd see a horse fall, a man leap from a burning building, a wagon careen off a cliff. And where others saw only spectacle, Tommy saw the invisible architecture of safety. He saw the harnesses hidden under costumes, the airbags concealed in the dirt, the team of trained medics just outside the frame, their very presence, a silent echo of a promise made in a dusty Mexican car. He knew the names of the men and women in those harnesses owed their careers, and sometimes their lives, to the stubborn, costly crusade of a man who had decided one broken stuntman was one too many. Tommy lived long enough to see the ripple effects become a wave. The Stuntmen's Association, once a loose collection of daredevils grateful for any work, grew into the Stunt Performers Guild, a powerful union with bargaining rights, pension plans, and a voice that could not be ignored. The safety protocols Wayne helped pioneer became the global standard, adopted not just in Hollywood, but on film sets from London to Hong Kong. When a young stunt performer named Vic Armstrong prepared to leap a motorcycle over a canyon for a 1980s adventure film, the hours of engineering reviews, the multiple safety wires, the fleet of ambulances on standby, all of it existed because of a precedent set 2 decades prior. The cost was factored in. The human life was valued first. For Tommy, the personal legacy was quieter, but no less profound. He saw his son Bobby walk down the aisle. He held his granddaughter on his lap, her small hands patting the arms of his wheelchair as he told her stories not of Hollywood stunts, but of desert sunsets and the loyalty of friends. He grew old with Sarah, their love deepened by a shared endurance of a tragedy that could have shattered them. He built a life, not in spite of the chair, but around it, a life filled with the ordinary precious things he had been terrified of losing on that March day. Laughter at the dinner table, the quiet comfort of a shared glance, the pride in a child's accomplishment. He never considered himself a hero. In his mind, he was simply a man who had survived. But his survival became a test to the stunt community. He was a living reminder of the before times, a stark embodiment of why the fight for safety had been necessary. To the few who knew the full story, he was the other half of a covenant, the man who allowed John Wayne to fulfill the best part of his character. The industry, of course, moved on. New stars rose. New technologies created ever more spectacular and ever more safely executed stunts. The name Tommy Farrell faded from public memory, as he always had been destined to do. But in the guild halls, in the safety meetings before a risky sequence, his story was part of the oral history. Remember the Farrell incident, a veteran coordinator would say to a young hotshot eager to bypass a protocol. That's why we check the harness twice. That's why we have the medevac on speed dial. That's why we... Wait, and what of John Wayne's other legacy? The films endure, of course. The image of the rugged individualist, the righteous force of American might, continues to be debated, celebrated, and critiqued. But alongside that complicated cultural icon exists a simpler, truer story known only to a smaller circle. It's the story that isn't about politics or persona, but about personal honor. It reveals that the man who played uncompromising heroes on screen found, in his deepest moment of crisis, that the role was not a performance. The courage required was not to face down a fictional villain, but to face down the colossal, indifferent machinery of his own profession. The strength needed was not to throw a punch, but to open a checkbook, month after month, for a man the system had written off. The toughness was not in a steely gaze, but in the emotional fortitude to confront his own guilt and channel it into lasting change. There is a poignant coda to their story, one that speaks to the private man behind the public legend. In the final, painful year of his life, as cancer waged its final war in Wayne's body, his thoughts often turned to... In a private letter to a close friend, unearthed decades later, Wayne wrote, "The doctors give me timelines, percentages. They talk about legacy, about film preservation. I think about a man in a wheelchair in Burbank. I think about whether his kids are doing all right in school. I think about whether I did enough. The picture business will forget me soon enough, and that's as it should be. But I hope he remembers that I tried. I hope he knows his life made mine mean more than just shadows on a screen." Tommy did know. He knew every day. He knew it when he maneuvered his chair through a doorway. Wayne had paid to widen. He knew it when he paid a bill with money earned from a job he got, because Wayne's accountant had made a call. He knew it in the unflinching way Wayne had looked at him, not with pity, but with a partnership forged in shared catastrophe. The final meeting between the two men, a month before Wayne's death, was stripped of all pretense. There were no cameras, no aid. Just two old men in a backyard, one standing with effort, the other sitting in the shade. They didn't talk about the past or the future. They talked about the azaleas Tommy was trying to grow, about the strange new flavor of ice cream Wayne's grandkids liked. They sat in a silence that was comfortable, full of everything that had already been said. When Wayne left, he paused, his hand resting heavily on Tommy's shoulder. "Thanks for letting me keep my promise." Tommy looked up, the sun framing Wayne's gaunt face. "Thanks for making one worth keeping." It was their last goodbye. The story of John Wayne and Tommy Farrell is not a fairy tale. It's messy, expensive, and fraught with pain, guilt, and near financial ruin. It's a story where the hero is riddled with cancer and the rescued man is confined to a wheelchair for life. There is no magical recovery, no triumphant return to glory. There is only the long, hard, unglamorous work of making things right. And that is precisely... In an age of curated celebrity and empty gestures, their story stands as a monument to substantive action. It asks an uncomfortable question. What is your promise worth? Is it worth your comfort, your wealth, your reputation? John Wayne answered with every fiber of his being, yes. He could have sent flowers, he could have visited once for a photo op, he could have made a charitable donation in Tommy's name and called it a day. The industry expected that. It would have been the reasonable thing to do. Instead, he chose the unreasonable path. He waged war. He spent treasure. He risked everything he had built. He turned a personal tragedy into a systemic revolution. So the next time you watch a film, any film with a daring action sequence, pause for a second. Look past the superhero, the spy, the adventurer. Look for the invisible people, the person flipping the car, the person falling from the roof, the person and know that there is a high probability they will finish their workday, take off their padded costume, and go home to their family, unharmed. That is not an accident. It is the result of a covenant. It is the result of one man's broken back and another man's unbroken word. The dust of Durango settled long ago. The films of that era are now streamed in digital clarity, the scratches and grain of celluloid softened by technology. But the promise made there remains sharp, undimmed by time. It echoes in every safety briefing, in every inspected rig, in every stunt performer who signs a contract knowing they are protected. The final scene of this true story belongs not on a film set, but in a quiet museum gallery. Under glass, two documents lie side by side. One, a hastily written vow on simple paper, beginning with "Tommy, I promise." The other, a heartfelt, unmailed letter, ending with "Your friend forever, Tommy." Between them, in the silent space on the museum wall, lies the real story. It is the story of what happened after. It is the story of how two lives, shattered on a hot Mexican plain, were pieced together into something stronger than either could have been alone. It is the story of how a moment of terrible failure became the foundation for a legacy of profound, life-saving success. And it whispers, across the decades, a simple, challenging truth that the measure of a man is not found in the roles he plays, but in the promises he keeps. John Wayne, for all his on-screen bravado, ultimately proved that the most heroic line he ever delivered wasn't written by a scriptwriter. It was spoken in desperation to a dying man. "I promise you, for the rest of his life. He made sure those 3 words were the truest he ever said.